What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you through my very own wildcard guide to the upcoming Game Week 30. So yes, Game Week 30 might actually be wildcard week for my own team. It might be for your own team as well. But even if it's not, this video is going to be quite useful for planning future strategies, as well as deciding which teams and players to target. So like I always do with my wildcard drafts, I'll be going over the fixtures first, deciding which teams to target, which players to go for, before finalizing the actual team selection and formation. So if you guys' international break has been good, we're going to jump back straight into all this wildcard goodness. So that's what you guys are interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. Now the first talking point I just want to go over is basically the question, to wildcard or not to wildcard, and that's what's going through my mind. So as you guys will know, if you've watched my previous videos, my chip strategy at the moment is to free it in Game Week 34 to bench boost in 37, and therefore I'm deciding whether to wildcard this week or next week. So I think if you guys are kind of going through the same dilemma, the easiest way to kind of look at it is look at your current team. Then I would decide on a wildcard draft for Game Week 30 and a wildcard draft for Game Week 31. If there's a ton of differences between your wildcard for Game Week 30 and your current team, then I'd probably activate the chip, and that's my current thinking. So when I made a wildcard draft for Game Week 31 and Game Week 30, they were actually quite similar, and therefore activating the chip this week, getting that extra team value, could be quite fruitful. Now the only problem is my wildcard players and my current squad players are quite different. For example, an Ollie Watkins against Wolves at home, I think he has the potential to do quite well this game week as a popular option, and therefore my current team actually looks fine on paper. That extra kind of few days of information, just remember Game Week 31 is going to be a midweek game week. But after an international break, seeing these players come back from injury, a lot of international break injuries have occurred, and therefore might be nice to get that information about the Game Week 30 fixtures before wildcarding Game Week 31. So my current thinking is I haven't activated the chip at the moment, but I might be tempted if we do get some concrete injury news from the press conferences coming up later in the week. So if you guys have the same question in your mind, what I would recommend doing is, as said, make a wildcard draft for Game Week 30, a wildcard draft for Game Week 31, and just see how appealing it is to activate the chip. Now if you guys are choosing a wildcard late in the season, that's 100% fine. Chances are you probably free it in Game Week 29. Then the kind of two game weeks to activate the chip are going to be Game Week 35 and Game Week 36. But let's go more into that game week schedule. So when doing any kind of free draft or wildcard draft, I always say the fixtures are the bread and butter of every draft. That's exactly what we'll be going over in this talking point. So if you guys don't know, double Game Week 34 was confirmed. I released a video on it a few days ago. Go check that out if you guys haven't. But that's allowed us to predict the rest of the season in terms of the doubles and the blanks. So the graphic I'm going to bring on screen right now is going to be from the ever reliable Ben Krellin. Go check him out over on Twitter if you guys haven't. Just one of the best sources for kind of game week schedules and predictions. And this graphic comes straight from his Twitter page. So you guys can see Game Week 34's double has been confirmed. We have 7 teams in total, and what that's kind of resulted in is the prediction for Game Week 37's doubles, and that's going to be for 6 teams. Now, 2 very important kind of smaller fixtures is the blank game week for Spurs in Game Week 34, and then we're going to have a double game week in 35 or 36 because of that, and Ben Krellin's currently predicting 36 to be more likely. So just something to take note of is that hasn't been confirmed yet, but the Game Week 37 doubles are very likely. So now what you guys see on screen is from Game Week 30 to Game Week 38, we have the double game weeks confirmed almost, with only 1 blank fixture from now to the end of the season. So now you guys can see if you're looking to wildcard in Game Week 35 or 36, you're obviously dead end into double Game Week 34, and that's pretty much what the free hitters in 29 are doing. One very important piece of information to see is the doubles in 34 and 37 are completely opposite. What I'm saying there is there's no team that kind of doubles in both game weeks, and therefore if you guys are having to prepare for both double game weeks, you'd have to go for a compromise and do kind of the best of both worlds. You can, however, do that with those free transfers from now to the end of the season. We have a few free transfers. Please don't forget about that on your wildcard or your non-chip strategy. So because this video is going to be more of a kind of Game Week 30 wildcard draft, I want to show you guys what you might have to prepare for in the future, and that's basically Game Week 35 onwards. The reason I'm saying this, and I think a lot of you guys are wildcarding in Game Week 30 and 31, you're probably free hitting in Game Week 34, and therefore you guys can completely ignore that double game week. You'll then have to prepare for the future game weeks, which are the double game weeks in 35, 36, and 37. So luckily enough, there are going to be 2 teams that actually have a double game week or 2 double game weeks, either back to back or split over 1 game week. Those 2 teams are going to be Chelsea and Spurs. As you guys can see, quite a few fixtures in the last end of the season, And on a wildcard, those are going to form your two kind of stable squads. So I would therefore recommend kind of jumping on these assets as far as possible, at least a double up, but you guys can go for a triple up. Now the reason I'm kind of focusing on these 4 game weeks is because that game week 37 double, if you are free in game week 34, is where your future transfers and your future planning should lie. You can therefore go for these double game week squads in your game week 30 wildcard and not have to worry about bringing them in late in the season. So the 6 teams that double are going to be Chelsea, Spurs, already spoken about, Man City, Brighton, United, and finally Newcastle. And I'm not saying that you guys only have to go for these squads, but there are a finite amount of free transfers to actually get them in your squads. One thing to also note is going to be the last game week of the season, game week 38. You guys will only have 1 free transfer to prepare for that, and I wouldn't recommend taking hits in that final game week. So luckily enough, going back to kind of Chelsea and Spurs, they have Bournemouth at home and Sheffield United away in those 2 games. And that's why they're going to form your staple of your wildcard. But I just wanted to talk about the end of the season first before talking about the beginning game weeks, as on a wildcard you want to go for some medium-term planning, not just short-term. So what I want to do is go back to the full season as a whole. As mentioned on my chip strategy, I'm free hitting in game week 34 and then bench boosting in 37. Especially if you guys are bench boosting in 37, you guys might want to target some of these double game week players first. As mentioned, only a finite amount of free transfers to actually get them in your squads. So the game week 30 wildcard comes down to kind of 2 portions. The first portion already spoken about, it's game week 35 to game week 38, but the second portion is from game week 30 to game week 33. Now instead of kind of going over the fixtures as a whole, I went over to Fantasy Football Fix, went over to their fixture planner, and I went for the best attacking fixtures over the next 4 game weeks. Now once again, lucky enough, you guys can see Chelsea and Spurs, once again, an absolute gift from the FPL gods on a wildcard. Not only do they have double game weeks at the end of the season, but the next 4 games are pretty decent. So once again, please focus on these 2 squads in those wildcard drafts, but now we're going to go over some other alternatives and other teams that have good fixtures. Those Liverpool assets are most sellers are definite, and if you guys maybe go for one of the defenders, great fixtures coming up. And then already spoken about Newcastle and Man City at the bottom with those double game week 37 fixtures. Now in between, you guys can make up your differentials. Bournemouth, if you want to go for a Dom Solanke in the 4 department, I do like him. And you can always make the switch to another double game week player late in the season. Then you have Brentford, Everton, Fulham, that might be quite differential. I know someone like Munez up front might be quite popular. Everton, one of those teams, if you guys aren't free hitting in game week 34, they have some good fixtures and a double in 34. But obviously with the free hit, I can avoid them for now. The one thing I want to point out with Everton though, is they have great fixtures for the short term, and in game week 37's double, they have a single game week, but it is against Sheffield United at home, which might be quite attractive. Just remember, just because it's a double game week doesn't mean that you guys have to go for a bench boost of double game week players, and a defender against Sheffield United might be an absolute haul. So taking these fixtures into account, I think the teams that you want to target, obviously Chelsea and Spurs are there. Liverpool, you guys can sprinkle in a double up or a triple up with those good fixtures, and the Newcastle and Man City also look pretty decent. The only problem and the reason I was kind of looking to avoid the game week 30 wildcard was Man City hosting Arsenal in this game week, as to myself, that fixture doesn't have too much of an upside. That's why you guys might want to bench those assets or limit your exposure, but there always could be goals in it. Other than them, unfortunately not all the kind of double game week 37 teams have good fixtures, but there are 1 or 2 squads that I still would target. So what this analysis will allow you to do is kind of get a good plan for the future game weeks. As mentioned, please don't go too short term, plan for at least the medium term on the wildcard. But now let's go on to the actual wildcard draft, the moment that you guys are probably waiting for, and I'm not going to go through this position by position, I'm going to go through kind of higher priority. So just be patient with me on this one, I will go over each player as mentioned. The order might just be slightly different. And also on the right hand side, I want to draw your attention to the money in the bank, 0.4 million left in the bank, so you guys might be able to afford this with slightly different team value. Now I'm going to go through this team as I would if I was building a wildcard draft, so let's start off with the goalkeepers. Now the goalkeeper department for me, the first player is a no-brainer, it's Petrovic from Chelsea. There might be some competition from Sanchez between the sticks, but I do believe he's the Chelsea goalkeeper at the moment. Now I've already spoken about how those Chelsea assets are integral, they got double game weeks coming up in the future, some great games for the short term, including the Burnley one in game week 30. So Petrovic is quite tempted if you guys are choosing to wildcard this week and next week, but the second goalkeeper is up for interpretation. Now you guys can go for Edison, hope that he comes back from injury. Man City always a strong defense, but I'm going to go for another Manchester club, and that's Onana. So yes, I'm actually having a United defender in my team, absolutely mental, but the United fixtures in the long term are actually pretty good. The rotation with Petrovic is also pretty nice, and if they both are fit for Game Week 37, that's 2 double Game Week players on my bench boost. But as mentioned, a ton of other variations you guys can go for. If you want to go for Pickford in Game Week 37 here, Sheffield United at home, that's a great game. And he might actually score more points than some of these other goalkeepers. But at the current moment, Onana and Petrovic for me is my favorite combination, so that's what we're going to rock with. Now I'm going to jump the defense to go for the midfield department because I do believe on a Game Week 30 wildcard, the midfield is the most integral department, starting off with Heung-min Son against Luton at home. Now I've just put the Kamsi armband on the South Korean, but you guys can also go for a differential option if you want to. He's just my favorite option at the moment. Now unfortunately, Heung-min Son is going to be my only Spurs midfielder at the current moment, but this is where you guys can add your own flavor to this template, and you might go for the double up. Now the next option, also no-brainer, is going to be Cole Palmer against Burnley at home. Like I mentioned, Chelsea assets, you have to go for a triple up, or at least a double up, and Cole Palmer is my second Chelsea player. Nothing much more has to be said about him. At his price point, great value for money still, even though he's had a billion price rises. Then the third no-brainer player is going to be Mo Salah, the Egyptian, against Brighton at home and Sheffield United in Game Week 31 is a no-brainer, and I still can afford the squad I want even with his increased price value. So Mo Salah kind of makes up the 3 in midfield that I think are essential, and now you guys can go differential. So I do believe this Premier League season the attack is much better than the defense, and that's why on this wildcard, let's complete the forward department, starting off with the Norwegian Erling Haaland. So yes, I can still afford Mo Salah and Haaland in this draft with affording most of my assets, and that's why I think it's better to just go for him than go for a differential. I've seen some wildcard drafts kind of going for an Ollie Watkins, maybe going for a Muniz against Sheffield United, but you're going to want Haaland pretty soon. So I bit the bullet, I put the Norwegian at his price point in my team. As I said, it's a future transfer that you're going to lock in. Now only slight downside is going to be the Arsenal game, but I guess if there's going to be a Man City player that scores against them, it's going to be Erling Haaland, and that's why I'm fine with playing him in a low upside fixture. Now because I went with Haaland, I'm going to shake things up with the rest of my forward department. In terms of the template, this is pretty template, but in terms of overall ownership, these two players are quite differential. So the first player, Darwin Núñez against Brighton at home. So yes, Darwizzy has made it into my wildcard draft. You just make sure that he's fit for Game Week 30. Missed the international break with an apparent knock he picked up in the Premier League, but I'm pretty sure he should be back for Liverpool this weekend. Like Mo Salah, 2 great fixtures coming up, Brighton and then Sheffield United, and you can even keep Darwin for the longer term. Then the next player, Newcastle with that double Game Week 37. I brought in Isaac earlier, West Ham at home. That's a great fixture on the cards. I would know as a pre-Areola owner. There might be some concerns there with the injury news at the current moment, but with Callum Wilson out, I do believe is the main choice. Fingers crossed he just stays fit. Now Newcastle's fixture is also pretty good for the short term, and as I mentioned, medium term, you want to bring him in, but you guys can look to bring him in the future if you're worried about some fitness concerns. So now that we've gone over our forwards, let's complete our midfield department, and the next player is going to be Bukayo Saka, and yes, I'm actually benching him as he has Man City away. Now you guys can 100% put him in the starting 11 if you want to. I just believe I didn't have him in my current team. I would rather bench him in my wildcard draft, as I can't see that much upside in this fixture. So the player I'll be starting over him is actually going to be Garnacho against Brentford away, and that might be a little bit mental. I just think Garnacho is the higher upside in this fixture, and therefore I'm going to play him over Man City away. Now this is where you guys can also go differential. If you want to play Saka and would rather go from Maddison or Richarlison as a 1-week punt, Luton at home's a great fixture to do it in. I just think in Game Week 32, you want Saka anyway, so you might as well just go for him. And I'm getting kind of the best of both worlds here by playing Garnacho with a better fixture. Now like Onana, Garnacho has that 37 double, and that's why you guys might want to go for him. And on the bench boost 37, he is quite cheap. But now let's go back to our defensive department. I've given it 0 love, and that's just because of the reasons I said. The upside might not be that high with these defensive options, and that's why I've actually gone quite cheap. So the first player is a Spurs defender. You guys need to go for one. Some good short-term fixtures and also some good upcoming doubles. And I've gone for a Dogi over Porro because of price difference. Between the two, if you guys can afford Pedro, Porro might be a slightly better option as he does take some set pieces. Udogie though isn't too shabby and does offer some kind of open attacking threat. And with Luton at home, that's a great fixture. Then I'm going to complete my Chelsea triple up with Gusto against Burnley. He is yellow flagged, but looks like he's going to be fit for Burnley this weekend. Now he is quite cheap, but there might be some rotation concerns. My current thinking is that with Reece James only returning end of April, at least Gusto gets the next few game weeks. Then with Reece James, he might have a setback in his injury kind of rehabilitation. He could come back for one game, get injured again, and that's why I think Gusto is a great shot at his price point. Even for the short term, the Chelsea fixtures are just too hard to ignore, and he does offer some attacking threat. Now the next option might be kind of a play that you only feature for this week. It's going to be Lascelles against West Ham. This might be quite risky, but with Botman out for this season, I do believe Lascelles should kind of play in that slot. Now we might see Dan Burn at centre back, but I do believe Lascelles is probably the preferable option. And against West Ham at home, I still believe Newcastle will keep a clean sheet. But he does come in super cheap and almost a blessing or a gift on a wildcard, and you're going to keep him here for the future game weeks. Now the two defenders on my bench, the first one is me Gabriel against Man City. The reason I'm benching him is obvious. I've got Erling Haaland. I hope Man City score, but Arsenal have the best defense in the Premier League and they have some good fixtures for the short term. He might be on the way out in the future for another double game week player, but at the current moment I want to slice of that Arsenal defense. Then the last defender is a very kind of template option on the wildcard. It's Van Heck from Brighton. So if you're not going to play him against Liverpool away in game week 30, but he has some good fixtures in the future coming up. Now also like an Everton defender, as mentioned here, if you guys want to go for a Tarkowski or Branthwaite, Sheffield United at home in game week 37 is definitely bench boostable, but I just want to show you guys a more template pick. Now there are some variations here. This is kind of the template that I would look at, but some spiciness can be added to this. One option I have seen is kind of going for Muniz from Fulham instead of an Isaac, and then upgrading one of your midfield departments. Instead of going for Saka, you guys can go for Maddison or Richarlison, and then bench Garnacho, or you might want to go for a 5 in midfield. The defensive department kind of picks itself, unfortunately, not too many great options here, and that's why we target defenders with bench boostable fixtures in game week 37. But your chip strategy might be completely different to mine. You guys might not be free hitting in game week 34, and then you can vary it according to your chip strategy. But on screen right now, you guys do see the kind of template wildcard game week 30, and this might actually tempt me to activate the chip shortly. But let me know what you guys think about this draft. If you guys aren't wildcarding, does this look quite nice? And if you guys are on the wildcard, what's your draft looking like? But tons of content still to come up. Hopefully we get some kind of injury news in the press conferences coming up late in the week. And of course, I'll update you guys if I do activate the wildcard chip. Comment down below if you guys have any transfer dilemmas or any kind of wildcard dilemmas, or my Discord server where I'm slightly more active, link in the description. But this is basically a wrap for you guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you didn't subscribe if you have subscribed yet, and I'll be seeing you guys in the future for the team selection. But for the time being, I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.